Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And I got a couple things I want to cover with Nick Wright. I can throw them all into one video, actually three things. I was going to do just one video, but then some other stuff came up, and I'm like, let me just hit this all in one go. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Now up front, there's something I probably need to say, been needing to say for a little while. Regarding Nick Wright. There was a personal, private beef between Nick Wright and I. He apologized to me and I refused his apology, basically told him what I would do if I ever saw him in person, and I was angry and dead serious at the time. In retrospect, I've had almost 2 years to cool off about that. Looking back at it, I think I need to be the bigger man here and realize that what Nick did was not intended to be malicious, it was just dumb. When someone does something dumb, not intentionally malicious, they really didn't mean harm, and they apologize, I feel like I need to be the bigger man and accept that apology. Nick, I forgive you for that. Promise you, bro, I won't kill you or anything if I see you. Nothing like that's going to happen. Just briefly, let me explain what it was so that people understand why I got so angry. In the course of all this internet stuff, everyone online thinks this is just an online thing, all this crazy stuff in these videos and this cyber stalking that happened to me. They think it's an internet thing. It's not. A lot of it went into real life. A lot of it involves swatting me, swatting other people. Loved ones of mine have actually been harmed as a result of that. I'm not going to get into the details of how or why so that, none of these trolls can jerk off thinking about it. Yes, people I care about have actually had real life things, bad things happen to them as a direct result of this. We were friends on Facebook, and I saw he clicked like and a laugh on one of the videos that had come out that had the address, the physical address of one of my loved ones in it. He thought it was just a funny trolling video and all that exposed stuff was coming out. It actually had the physical address of someone I care about in the video, and physical harm came to that person later as a result of their address being publicized everywhere. And it's messed up. It's really messed up. So because that address, he did that, I felt like he was maliciously spreading that. We got that video taken down because of that. All the videos that had people's addresses were removed by YouTube. But that's what I'm talking about by messing with people's loved ones. Like, loved ones of mine have actually been harassed, threatened, or in some cases had some form of harm come to them as a result of all this stuff. And so, no, I wasn't willing to forgive Nick for that. I just wasn't, because I was angry. I was really angry. But you know what? Him hitting the like on it might have put it through his Facebook. And he didn't intentionally mean to cause harm. He probably didn't realize there was an address in there. He didn't realize any of my loved ones had been harassed or anything like that. It was just him being dumb, thinking it was just funny trolling and not realizing the true extent of what was going on. He apologized. Nick, I accept your apology. I'm going to be the better man here and just accept it. No hate, brother. I'm just going to leave it alone. I don't like the fact that you sell supplements. But now that that's out of the way, I felt like I needed to get that off my chest. I need to forgive and move on from that one. I need to just move on. I feel like it's just something I need to do. So, that being said, let's talk about his powerlifting meet and the fact he's jumping into bodybuilding. I don't think bodybuilding is a good choice for Nick. Nick has never been successful as a bodybuilder. He's been doing really well as a powerlifter. Particularly in drug-tested powerlifting. Now, people could argue, well, we think he's a fake natty. He might be. Very well could be. But the point is, if he's going through testing, he's at least probably not abusing, probably better for his health. And again, given a choice between the two from a health perspective, as long as you're not going too crazy on the powerlifting, it's the more healthy of the two endeavors. Again, unless you get morbidly obese or you abuse a ton of drugs and everything. He's been successful as a powerlifter. He has not been successful as a bodybuilder. He's not going to go anywhere in bodybuilding. He's not built for it. It's not his thing any more than it is for me. His powerlifting has been good. I think that's a mistake on his part. I know he's passionate about it. I know maybe it'll help his outreach and fans in certain ways, but he's just not done very well with it. But then you look at how he's done at powerlifting. He did good. But something I want to point out there is kind of a point I make when we look at his meet results. Because he actually was very successful at the meet. He put up some good numbers. I think for a 200-pound guy in the open, to go 545 squat. That's with no reps. That's with knee sleeves. We can argue how raw knee sleeves are, but they're allowed. 545 squat at 200, that's real solid. I don't think anybody can hate on that. I can't. You know, maybe Larry Wheels can hate on that. But I think the rest of us, that's real solid. He did good. The 363 bench, which was his opener, is what he got stuck with. He did good. Did good. 590 deadlift. Again, at 200 pounds. That's good. That's real good. So he did well on there. Now, on a side note, though, I mean, there's some people who have pointed out, well, how come his gym lifts are better? Well, that's the point I make to you guys out there, too. It's one thing to have gym lifts. It's another thing to actually do them in comp. And that's something that people need to think about when you look at how different power lifters and strength athletes train. And then you look at certain people's gym lifts and you wonder why in competition, the gym lifts for some people are very, very lighter. And for some people, they do better in competition. And here's what it comes down to. The way you're training versus how you're competing. If you do not train the way you compete, do not expect similar numbers in the gym versus competition. What do I mean? Everyone's like, yeah, well, Nick hit a 405 bench. Hit a 405 bench in the gym fresh. Unless you're doing a bench-only competition, in what world do you get to bench press fresh? You don't. You don't. If you do not practice squatting to a max before you bench press, your bench, if you have a bench press day and you come in and you hit a PR in the gym on a bench press day when you're fresh, particularly if you had a day off before, you're probably, unless some of there are exceptions, you're probably not going to hit that in competition. You're not going to hit it in comp. He hit a 405 bench on basically a bench press day, fresh. Gets to a meet, he gets 363. Now, some people say, well, he made that 372 or 375. We need to do the kilos conversion. Well, no, he was a touch and go. He overshot the press command because he didn't pause. He didn't really pause, like meet legal pause. So no, it didn't count. And then he failed his third attempt, I think, with the same weight. He failed it. So he got a 363. That's what he could bench in comp. 42 pounds difference from his gym lift. Guys need to understand that. A lot of noobs get into powerlifting and they do that, and they'll do these big lifts on different days. Deadlift is the ones that gets guys the most. Because the same thing. All right, he went 590 on a deadlift, right? What happens? A week later in the gym, he goes 610. How'd that happen? Because he deadlifted fresh. You see that a lot with people. A lot of noobs get in and they're hitting these lifts on fresh days, separate days. They get to a meet and they start bombing out. Their first meet and they don't understand what happened. It's like, well, you know, have you practiced bench pressing? Do you train the bench press after you've done heavy squats? If you never do it, don't be surprised if all of a sudden your gym lifts, like things that you're doing triples with in the gym, don't be surprised if you get pinned under them in competition. That's how it happens. And that's why bench only has its own records. Has its own set of records. You generally should be able to do better on a bench only because you're doing it fresh. You're coming in and you're just bench pressing. Competition, you got to squat first. Deadlift, even more so. You have to squat and bench press. What happens if you're someone who uses a big arch on the bench press? So your spinal erectors got fatigued doing 3 max squats. Well, 1 to 2 max squats because your opener's not a max. Right? Your lower back's fatigued. Then if you're a big archer on the bench press, your lower back's getting further fatigued. By the time you get to the deadlift, I've seen guys in comp who train deadlift on its own day miss lifts they've done 4 and 5 reps with in the gym and training. It happens. It happens sometimes. And I think that's something that needs to be highlighted when we're talking about strength sports. There's a strategy even to your training it. You have to factor in. And if you're hitting these lifts on their own days in the gym, you better factor that in when you go to compete. Because the later lifts into the meet, you're getting more fatigued as you go. And you need to work on your fatigue management. Again, you're going to be surprised. A lot of the guys who do well in a lot of comps, they lay down and sleep between attempts. they get as much recovery as possible oftentimes, or see a lot of guys do that between those attempts, between those different lifts, so that they're recovered enough. A lot of lifters like to train their peak lifts on the same day. Some guys like to do kind of their max effort type work on the squat, bench, and deadlift all on the same day, so that again it's more realistic for what they do in meet. That's one thing I do with my Bulgarian training these days, because you got to think about it in those terms. In any strength sport, unless you're doing a bench only or a deadlift only, you're not going to do those fresh. You're not going to do them fresh. If you go do powerlifting, you're going to have to squat. You're going to be fatigued from that squat. Then you're going to have to bench press and you have to deadlift. You go do strength lifting, same thing. You're going to have to squat, then you're going to have to press, then you're going to have to deadlift. Things that people need to factor in when they're strategizing for some of these strength sports. Because some people were definitely wondering about that. And to me, it was obvious. It's like, okay, guys, he hit that 405 fresh. It's totally different when you compete. And there's a difference between the competitive environment, the stressors going on there, versus doing things in the gym when you're in your comfort zone. It's a totally different animal. I mean, the same thing that came up too with Alpha Destiny's bench the other day. People need to understand that. That's a bench only, right? If you don't train legs and you're very lean, you're obviously going to have a much better bench press only, particularly for your weight class, because you don't have leg weight weighing you down. You get to bench press fresh. You're going to hit better numbers. That's just the way it is. But even then, what happened? You see someone who his gym lift, he hits 11 pounds less than comp. Not saying it wasn't a good lift, it was a good lift. But realistically speaking, people who are new to competition, who haven't experienced it a lot, who aren't using necessarily calibrated plates, everything else, they can't always replicate their gym lifts in comp. They can't always do it. And it doesn't matter that people say, well, it looked really fast. I think he had more in the tank. That's not how strength sports work. You assume that, but I've also seen people hit lifts that look like openers, go up 10 pounds and get stapled. Happens all the time. Some people are just faster and more explosive than others, and a true 1 rep max for some people looks like an opener. Ray Williams, watch him squat. When he broke that squat record, it looked like an opener. I've seen guys do that. I've seen guys break records who don't grind. It's a fast, super fast rep. It looked just like a training lift, looked like an opening lift. They broke a record. It is their lifetime best. It is their best. You got to remember that, guys. At the end of the day, when you're talking about how strong you are in a competitive environment, all that matters is what you hit in comp. It doesn't matter. There is no coulda, woulda, shoulda. I should have done better. I can do better. He could do better. No, they can't. You get what you get. See, strength sports are not objective. They're not subjective. They're objective. You lift what you lift on the calibrated plates. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And you live and die by those numbers. If you bench 375, but you think you should have got 390, no one cares. No one cares. If you got a million people saying he could have got 390, well, they didn't. You get 375. That's what you got. Strength sports are objective, and you can't stand there and say, well, if this had happened, this person would have got this. Well, it's kind of like talking about the Super Bowl. Man, if he had just caught that football, they would have got that extra point, and they would have won the Super Bowl and all made several million more dollars. Well, they didn't. That's how sports work, guys. That's the reality of it. But it's just an interesting thing to note, because I think Nick did really well, to be fair. I think his lifts were really good. There's plenty of other YouTubers who are doing less than that. Very famous YouTubers in meets, I'm not going to pick on anybody, who he flat out beat, who weigh more. Like as far as even this last year. So, I mean, Nick's doing pretty good. I think, personally, I think he should stick with powerlifting. I think he's more suited for it. He's more gifted at powerlifting than bodybuilding, and it is what it is. Just my opinion. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.